Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where Karens continue to act like they rule the world and can do whatever they want. And guys, in today's episode, of course, the stories are gonna be crazy again. We've got people trespassing and stealing. Opie tells a tale about a crazy court battle his dad is going through. Entitled grandmas are trying to get people fired. It's gonna be wild. I hope you enjoy the wacky stories today. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and the email for story submissions will be posted right here. So my partner and I were out to eat at an Italian restaurant over the weekend. It was going great, except we were seated by the door, so whenever someone came in, the cold breeze would hit you. Now this is just important so you know that we were the closest table to the door. Anyways, our pizzas came and we were about to dig in. Then out of nowhere, a kid comes up to our table. Now at first, I thought the kid was lost or something, but then, without saying a word, he reaches onto the table, sticks his grubby hands onto my plate, and takes a slice of my pizza. Now at that, I had no idea what to do, except say, what do you think you're doing? The kid then says, oh, my mom said I'm allowed. And suddenly I hear it. I hear, Jonathan, what's going on? Did you get your pizza? I turned in my seat to the woman, thinking the child must have been confused or something and thought the pizza that I was eating was his or something. I then told the woman something along the lines of, hey, sorry, your child just stuck his hands in my pizza and he took a slice. Now, I expected her to apologize, be super embarrassed, etc., because kids are kids, right? But heck no. The woman says something like, yeah, he's a child, he's hungry, and he likes pizza. And hearing that, I was floored. Like, what? So I said he shouldn't just grab food from other people or walk around a restaurant and steal food from others. What he did is stealing food. Hearing that, she was livid. She said, it's not stealing, it's sharing. It's good manners to share. At this stage, she was pretty close to yelling. At that point, a waiter comes over and asks them if they would like a table for two, but the woman doubles down and says, no, this man called my son a thief. All my son wanted was some pizza, and now he's upset. I will not eat here. Cue the child crying. The waiter then said, if you aren't dining with us, then you're gonna have to leave, and she loses it. She starts screaming about discrimination. She eventually did leave, and both my partner and I got our pizzas remade and a whole bottle of house wine for free. So yeah, not very exciting, but imagine the parenting that's going on if a mother's allowing her child to eat off other people's plates. Yeah, guys, some people truly never cease to amaze me. Like, allowing your son to steal food off other people's plates in a restaurant is absolutely ridiculous. And this is not the first story I've read where this has happened. Like, yeah, your kid's hungry, he likes pizza, teach him to wait like everybody else. And the audacity of that woman to get angry at OP and say that it's sharing and good manners to share. Well, Karen, how about you give me all of your money? Because after all, it is sharing and good manners, right? That's not stealing if I take your money from you. So a little context. I'm a lifeguard and a swim teacher. So last Saturday was the last swim class of the session. The way our program works is we have a family splash on the last session, where we take out all the lines in the pool and parents are able to join their kids in the water to just swim around and have fun. Obviously, none of the instructors are teaching swim lessons at this time, so we stand outside the pool and lifeguard while the parents and their kids swim. So what ended up happening was that I was standing on the deck, scanning the pool, doing what lifeguards do, when this little boy catches my eye. Now, this boy happened to be in the swim class that I primarily taught, and he just so happened to be a bit of a slow learner. By the end of the session, he couldn't really push off the wall into my arms the way the other kids could. And oftentimes, his legs would hang below him when we tried to get him to kick using a kickboard. His brother was doing great, but he wasn't. So naturally, I'm on high alert when I see him with a back floaty that doesn't look fastened properly, seemingly unable to get off the wall if he needed to. The water was up to his neck, and if he'd slipped out of the floaty, he most definitely would have gone under. I was under the impression that this kid was alone, because there wasn't an adult within arm's reach of him. That was one of the rules in the pool, by the way. If a kid isn't exactly able to swim on their own, they need to have an adult within arm's reach of them at all times. But just when I'm about to get the kid to the wall, an elderly woman who I can only assume was his grandmother comes up to him. I relaxed a bit and continued to watch over the pool, looking over now and then to make sure that he's in no immediate danger. And this is where the entitlement comes in. So at some point, while I'm watching the kid and the grandma sees me looking over. I keep watching them, making sure he's alright, and then look around at the other kids. I then move my gaze back to the kid and the grandma, and she sees me doing that again. The third time I do it, she gives me a little bit of a stink eye. But of course, I'm on duty, and can't pay this woman too much attention, so I keep scanning. Now, you know how they say third time's a charm? I say fourth time's the killer. So the fourth time I turn my gaze towards the Karen and her grandson, she's now by the wall where I am, and she's looking up at me with a pissy face. She then gets out of the pool, marches up to me and says, "Excuse me, can I speak to you for a moment?" Now, for the record, lifeguards are not supposed to talk to people while on duty for more than a minute or two, so I spoke to her while still scanning the pool. I asked her, "Oh, ma'am, is something wrong?" She then says to me, "Will you stop staring at me and my grandson?" I say to her, come again? Who are you? Why are you even here? You are creeping us out, and I will talk to the front desk if I see you staring again. Don't stare at me. At this point, I tell her, "Ma'am, I'm a swim teacher at this pool and a lifeguard. Right now, there's no lessons, so I'm lifeguarding. I wasn't staring at you with any intent. I was only making sure that you and your grandson were safe. I'm sorry if it came off that way." She then says, "Well, my grandson and I are fine. We don't need people watching us. Stop watching me or I'll report you to your manager." "Ma'am, lifeguards are required by law at public swimming establishments. I need to be watching everyone swimming here." She then replies, "Okay, but can you not be creepy about it, at least? Like, good God, why would they even hire someone as creepy as you?" At that point, I was about to say something back, but then something catches my eye. This old hag has been spending so much of her time chewing me out for doing my job that she failed to keep an eye out for her own grandson, who's now floating helplessly farther away from her, away from the wall. And that floaty keeps rising higher and higher up his chest, and he keeps going lower. So I ignore what the lady's saying, walk down a bit so I'm right across from the poor kid, and throw out my rescue tube. I call for him to grab on, which he does, and safely guide him back to the wall. And Grandma Karen looks like she's gonna lose it, which probably would have happened had my manager not stepped in. So the rest of this went past in a blur. She calls me a creep for staring at people, my manager says I'm doing my job, and we got the kid a much better fitting life vest. And Grandma did not bother me for the rest of the time they were there. Okay, so going through the comments, apparently there's a lot of people who work at amusement parks and swimming pools that say that this happens on a regular basis, guys. Like, I know having a random stranger staring at you can be really uncomfortable, but you have to be able to recognize when it's an employee keeping their eye on things, Karen, and doing their job. Yeah, if I were OP, I definitely would have flat out said, "Ma'am, I'm a lifeguard. It's my frickin' job to stare at you, especially since your grandson can't swim well." So I'm a 19-year-old hostess, and I work at a large chain of Mexican restaurants. I've hosted before at another restaurant, so I know what I'm doing, and how to generally handle customers who are being rude. I have my fair share of entitlement stories. So on this day, it's a Sunday, it's lunchtime, and there's an NFL game on TV. We're on a wait, about 15 to 30 minutes. The lobby's full, and so is the atrium. We've been asking people to wait either outside or in their cars, taking phone numbers to call people back at. So in walks Karen with her son. The son's probably no older than 16. The kid looks like he has mental issues. So all goes well until I ask for her phone number. Karen then asked, "Well, why do you need that? It's private information." I say to her, "Ma'am, it's very crowded in here. We need you to wait outside or in your car. The phone number so I can call you back when a table opens up." She then says to me, "Well, I'm parked in a handicap spot. I need my husband to help me back out." I nod, and before I get the number, she walks away to the bar. Her husband then walks in. The woman flags him down, shoots me the smuggest look and says, "Hey, take us off the list. We're sitting at the bar." Now, I live in a state where there's two places in a bar. The cocktail area, which is kid-friendly, and the actual bar that's not kid-friendly. The woman and her family are sitting in the bar, not the cocktail area. So my petty self gets the bartender, and I tell her, "Hey, you see that lady over there? She was terribly rude, and her son is definitely underage. Could you go card him?" At this, the bartender grins and says, "Oh yes, absolutely, she can do that." So a few minutes later, I hear the woman shrieking so loudly that it gets the attention of the whole place. She's screaming, "He's disabled. You have to let him sit here with us. We do not want to wait." The bartender calmly tells her that there's a cocktail seating for families with kids, that she'll have to go to the hostess and get on the list. She then says, "But there's no room." She goes to argue for a few more minutes, and then she stomps over, looks at me and says, "You, it's been 15 minutes. Get me a table." At that point, I have the pleasure of smiling at her and saying in my most pleasant customer service voice, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but since you asked to be removed, you're no longer on the list. You'll have to put your name on the list and it'll be at least 30 minutes. Can I get a name and a phone number?" Now, the look of rage on her face fueled me for the rest of the day as she stomped out with her husband and son in tow. Guys, so reading this, I can't help but wonder if she parked illegally in the disabled parking spot out front due to her son's mental issues. And yeah, I know it's such a horrible thing to say, but I've read too many of these stories, and it wouldn't shock me at all, guys. Some entitled parents love to use their kids' disabilities and mental illnesses for their benefit. Okay, so I'm gonna try to keep this one short. I recently bought my son a new bicycle for several reasons. Firstly, for being so good with his potty training in the run-up to starting school. Second, his toddler bike was broken, and I didn't feel safe letting him ride it anymore. Therefore, the toddler bike was put outside my house, behind my garbage bin last week, waiting to be taken away. So today, I come home from work, I'm tired, it's hot, I just want to shower and relax. About 5 minutes later, someone's banging on my door. It's the lady from across the road, who also has a young son. I often see her young son, who's approximately 6 or 7 years old, playing outside with his friends. So it turns out he had seen the broken bike behind my garbage bins and decided that he wants to ride it. As it's broken, this didn't end well. Her son fell off, has some bad scrapes down his face and arms, and had a black eye from bashing his head on the ground. The woman is throwing a tantrum. She's threatening to call police because apparently it's my responsibility to not leave anything outside, just in case he thinks it's there to take and play with. Now, what's even crazier is she wants me to pay to reimburse her taxi fare to the hospital and back. She wants me to pay for any medical bills that were accrued while in the hospital, and for any medical supplies that she'll need, such as bandages, creams, etc., etc. Of course, hearing that, I flat out refused. I told her I'm sorry for the boy, it does look painful, and I've fallen off my fair share of bikes. But this bike was not only on my property, behind my gate and fence, but also behind my garbage bins. There was no way the bike could have been seen from the street unless you're looking for it, meaning her kid had to have trespassed onto my garden and had to have been looking around to have found it. The woman then gets angry and stomps off, telling us that we'll hear from her lawyer. We never did. Yeah, OP never heard from a lawyer because she realized that nothing could happen. Like, she's got no leg to stand on. And guys, I don't understand people's thought process sometimes. Your son trespasses into OP's yard, steals a bike because he wants to ride it, then gets injured, and you threaten to sue for medical bills and reimbursement? Like, I think at that point I would have called police and let her tell this story to them. See how they like it when I tell them she let her son trespass and steal from me and now wants to sue me. So this has been an issue that's been ongoing in the legal system for a couple of years, but only a couple of months ago, it was finally settled. Before we go any further, I just want to explain that my father and his friend own a piece of land together. They bought it a few years back, and I don't remember how much it cost them, but each paid half the money, so they both co-own the land. The land was quite spacious, so there was enough area to build 2 walls to divide the houses, so each side could create their own house, garden, etc., etc. I hope I'm explaining this well. I also want to mention the land was intended to be used to build a summer home, so we could go there to spend holidays or the summer when we felt like it. And while the beach wasn't necessarily right next to it, it was a very short distance from the land. Anyway, everything was going nice before the purchase. The old man who originally sold them the land was actually nice at first, and everything went well. Dad and friends signed the contract and the land was now ours. However, everything goes downhill fast. Apparently soon after the purchase, the city hall decided to asphalt the main road that connected the street and the land. It was previously a sand road. So because of this, the price of the house and the lands increased. The previous owner realized this, and realizing he lost the chance of selling it at a higher price, decided to go against the contract and try to claim his land back. And that's when all hell broke loose. Following that, an all-out war started, the old man versus friend and my dad. The guy began threatening them, saying he'll take them to court, how the land was still his, and the contract was nullified, blah blah blah. The problem is, Dad and friend were still paying. They didn't pay all the money immediately because neither of them had anywhere near enough cash to pay it outright. So we paid in finances, like a specific amount per month or something. That part was actually blurry to me because my parents never specified how it worked, but it was something like that. Anyways, that meant the old man basically took their money hostage, and thus, Dad and his friend refused to pay the remainder of the deal, deciding that since the old man was trying to get the land back and holding the money hostage, they would play the same game. Now, according to my mom, both my dad and his friend at some point went to the guy's house to try to come up with an agreement. Of course, the man was incredibly hostile and angry, and according to Dad, he had a concealed weapon, like a knife or something, not a fire weapon. And once they realized they weren't going anywhere, they decided to leave, and the man apparently tried to chase them with the weapon. Dad's friend then stopped him by grabbing a piece of wood, threatening to hurt him if he took one more step towards them. The old guy realized that he was outmatched and then backed off, but continued to spew threats. So after that, they took it to court, but for some reason, the entire thing took a couple of years to finally get settled. During that time skip, I have no idea what was going on. I have no idea what the process was, and actually didn't care, as long as the old guy paid for trying to screw us over. During this time, my uncle became a licensed lawyer. My mother asked for his help and advice, and my uncle pretty much said the old guy was digging his own hole. Anyway, on the day of the final conclusive hearing, it all ended. The man showed up to court, and once the judge asked for their sides of the story, the idiot pulls out a fake contract. Yes, dear reader, you read that right. The guy pulls out a fake freaking contract with his signature on it, but not my dad or friends, and claimed that the two never signed anything. Therefore, the land was officially his, and demanded that they return it to him. However, my dad then pulls a reverse Uno card and revealed the actual contract, with all 3 signatures on it, and pretty much revealed that the man was trying to screw them all over. Also, during the 2 years this had been going on, the man goes back to our land and built a small cabin for himself. Yep, he believed he was surely gonna win and get his land back. So the guy builds a cabin and claimed that that cabin had been built before he sold the land. But the camera showed the construction taking place in between the 2 years this whole thing was going on, so that was strike 1. Then Dad showed off the video footage of the incident I mentioned before, the old man trying to attack them with a weapon. It was caught on camera by one of the light posts in the street. That was strike 2. And finally, the old guy put the nail in his coffin by continuously claiming contradictory statements. I don't know exactly what he was saying, but according to my dad, the man says one thing, and later on he says another thing, before starting the cycle again. Eventually, the judge heard enough and he dropped the hammer. The man had lost the case completely. Also, the man had 30 days to collect whatever items and tools he left behind at the cabin he built. Otherwise, our family could claim it as our own. Aside from that, he had to pay both parties' lawyers' fees, and also, he had to pay a large fine for the evidence of him trying to attack my dad and his friend with a weapon. Either that or go to jail, and obviously he chose the former. Now, I don't know how much he paid, but I do know it was a lot of money. So in the end, the guy lost the case, made a fool out of himself, had to pay both lawyers for the trouble, and had to pay an additional amount of money for the fine. So I just want to say that the only thing that would have made the story way more satisfying is if the old guy was slapped with a fine and forced to remove the cabin he built on Dad's land. And seriously, money does make people do crazy things, I tell ya. But hey, what can we take away from this? Always honor a legally binding contract. And don't ever frickin' bring a fake contract to court, right? Like, what the heck are you thinking, sir? He wasn't thinking. For backstory, we just moved into this house just over a month ago, and from the very beginning, we've had both neighbors to the side of us immediately start hounding us if we were gonna use all of our parking spaces. So our house has an extended 3 parking space lot on the back of it. Both neighbors want to use it for free. They would harass us every time they saw us. From the moment we've moved in, for a full 3 days of telling them no, we finally contacted the landlord, and he called them and put a stop to it, or so I thought. About 2 weeks ago, my family and I were getting out of the house and doing a little bit of shopping. We come back to find a large truck trying to maneuver a trailer through the alley to our spaces. It blocked us from driving into our space, and we sat there for a solid 10 minutes, watching them slowly move the trailer into one of our parking spots. One of the guys directing the truck comes over to see if we need to get past, but we informed him that where they were parking was our house, and they had no permission to do so. The guy looked a bit shocked and said, "Oh, the lady said we could park here." We then laugh and tell him no, because no one came to ask us at any time if they could use our spots, and we had been there for a full month at that point. So they pull out and we pull in, and I thought that would be the end. But no, 5 minutes later, a Karen comes strolling over with her young child in tow and wants to speak with me. I go outside, and now she wants to ask me if they can park. She says, "So we're having landscaping done, can these guys park here for the day?" I tell her I'm sorry, but no. Had there been a tiny bit of neighborly respect of you asking me first, I would have said yes, but you chose to wait and have them try to park it there while we weren't home. The woman says, "But I didn't know they were coming today." I told her, so these people just showed up to do your yard work and you had no idea they were coming? To which she said, this was set up months ago and they were finally able to come out, and at the time the house was empty. I say to her, we've been here for a month, so why didn't you just come over at any time and confirm that it would be okay? Again, she says she didn't know they were coming today. I say to her, but you did know they were coming at some point, right? So why not come over and ask instead of waiting until the day they're here? It goes around like this for a while, with her saying she didn't know it would be today, and me saying she knew they were coming. It was honestly infuriating. She then says, well, where are they gonna park? I tell her, I honestly don't know and don't care. You're mad because you thought you could use someone else's property without their knowledge or consent, and then play the victim when you're told no. Grow up. The woman then storms off with her kid in tow, mad about not getting her way. I called my landlord too, so if there was some kind of arrangement made between the two of them, we were never made aware. The landscapers had to come back the next day and park in front of another neighbor's garage, sandwiched between two trees. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our slash entitled people. Guys, let me know what you would have done in that situation. Some people say that OP should have let it slide one time, and that they were the Karen in this situation. But you know what? You know entitled people. Give them an inch and they'll take a mile. If OP let it slide, the next thing you know, there's gonna be cars on the driveway all the friggin' time. And you don't wanna live with that. Guys, if you enjoyed the episode today, hit that like button. And if you missed yesterday's episode, it's a malicious compliance where Grandpa gets taught a lesson by Grandma. It's such a funny, satisfying story, so check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.